Greetings, my fellow travelers. My name is Xylo, your cosmic narrator, and this is Higher Strangeness. Thank you for joining me. Tonight, I would like to analyze the media through a different sort of looking glass than you're probably used to seeing it through. I want to examine crop losses in the United States and also the plans that will be implemented in the face of looming food shortages and, dare I say, economic depression. And finally, we'll be investigating how this all fits under the convenient umbrella of global warming, and not the grand solar minimum or our magnetosphere, the phenomena that is genuinely affecting our planet's weather. Now, we're going to need something pretty strong tonight to break through all this parallel reality bullshit that our lives have become. So from Purple Doja to Purple Urkel to Purple Diesel, this is one hell of a trifecta. A hybrid that will literally take you on a journey somewhere else. No one does the voodoo like you do, Purple Voodoo. So without further ado, Mr. Purple Voodoo, consider this. Who controls the food supply controls the people. Henry Kissinger. In case you haven't noticed, and there's a good chance you haven't, by design of course, there have been significant and in some cases crippling crop losses and livestock mortalities throughout the United States and many other countries. Due to a long rainy spring into summer and then a very early winter, this season is what some farmers are calling the most devastating year they have ever seen. One so tragic that we have almost expired our entire surplus of corn and other grains. And we are actually importing corn from Brazil, the third largest producer of corn in the world. We're the first. Usually, we're the ones exporting. Most farmers in our lifetime, and even the generation prior, have never seen a year when they have completely run out of grain. It's unheard of. This not only affects the food served at your table, but also the feed shortages for livestock, seeds, canneries, resulting in a slew of bankruptcies, etc., etc., etc. And to add insult to injury, the FDA and USDA are not telling you the truth. You can harvest 80% of a field, fine, but what are you actually harvesting? You aren't getting the facts, you're just getting statistical chicanery, and that kind of absent and convenient math runs rampant in our government, our financial conglomerate, and of course, in our media, especially our media. There is a campaign happening right under your nose that is keeping the truth from you, so that you will not be prepared for what is coming. If you're focused on global warming over there, you'll fail to see the coming winter right in front of you, a long overdue ice age that we are quickly descending into. Quote, "Truth is so precious that she should always be attended by a bodyguard of lies." Well said, Winston Churchill. Why do you think comments about natural solar cycles influencing the weather are being censored on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and other social media and news platforms? It's a weird thing to censor, right? It's a simple answer, but it bites through the very core of everything we are supposed to represent in this country and our natural rights as an intelligible species. The answer is this. Censorship is only practiced to misinform or disinform a society from knowing the truth. You will never see it used for any other reason. No one should ever be censored from speaking their mind. And yet, here we are, the most widely used social media platforms in the world with absolute dominance in the field of data gathering, news, and networking censoring you. Who are they afraid might be listening? Quote, "The climate crisis is our third world war." Joseph Stiglitz, a Nobel Prize-winning propagandist who is either not a very good economist or he's been bought. Way to ramp up the fear there, Joseph. I mean, I'm sure this has nothing to do with creating carbon currency, coming from an economist. And what will that look like, carbon currency? Well, here's a short list. Carbon taxes on gas and petrol, sin taxes, that's right, on meat, pay as you trash on refuse, and finally, good old carbon points that you can spend like dollars on high emission goods and services. So basically, anytime you spend money on anything that they consider to have an influential carbon footprint, not only will dollars get deducted from your bank account, but so will carbon points. So let's say one night you want to go out and get some prime rib at your favorite restaurant. But first, you got to get some gas on your way. Well, that night you'll lose points twice. Once for pumping gas, and again for dining on meat. The proposition is that everyone will receive an equal amount of carbon points, and once they begin to wane, you will begin to curtail your carbon mongering ways. In which case, if CO2 actually did cause global warming in this fantasy world that they have enveloped you in, that would seem pretty fair, right? Every human being has the same footprint, period, no exceptions. No one can bend the rule or pollute the planet worse than the next person, yada, yada, yada. Except that now they've introduced this idea that you can purchase more carbon points. Wait, I can actually purchase more points to pollute the atmosphere in this fantasy role-playing game you've created? Holy shit. Well, that doesn't seem very fair at all now, does it? So if I have a lot of money, I can eat steak every night. But someone who isn't as affluent, which is most of the population, by the way, well, let them eat the insect protein cake that, quote, tastes like meat. Not that I have anything against eating insects, but I think you catch my drift. This is not a fanciful notion. Just study Finland. Coming to a country near you. Man, if this doesn't feel like you're in an episode of Black Mirror, well, then it's too late for you. It's pretty funny if you can see through it, but unfortunately, most of the population can't. They've been so indoctrinated by the media and the hierarchy feeding the media that the reality is belittled and even vilified. And they're inspired to act out in violent protest to fortify the lie that has been beaten into their psyche. I mean, I have to admit, I am highly impressed by the machine they have created. I was duped once, just like so many others. Even growing up under open-minded tutelage, I was still taken in by the propaganda and hyperbole. I know what it's like to be on the other side, to have your beliefs rattled and your passion stripped. It's a hard lesson in humility. There is a confluence of events that have been taking place during your lifetime that are adversely affecting the weather. But CO2 is not one of them. Bring down CO2 levels low enough and you really will have an extinction event. If you pierce the veil and look at just the last 20,000 years of climate cycles, researching grand solar minimums and maximums versus temperatures and weather patterns, you'll discover the planet is primarily in distress during times of colder weather rather than warmer weather. The Minoan, Roman, and medieval warming periods can testify to that actuality, as can our current and abundant warming epoch. But if you look at just the last 30 years and adamantly focus on the narrative and charts that are being served to you, you'll only see what you want to see. Something which has nothing to do with real science or the truth. Just because someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Leonardo DiCaprio are ignorant, that doesn't mean you have to be. Celebrity doesn't equal truth. It's just as vulnerable to the mirage as you are. When the economy crashes, mark my words, crop losses and food shortages will be the catalyst. And you can bet your ass they will blame it on global warming rather than the grand solar minimum, the waning of our magnetosphere, or the magnetic pole excursion that is taking place right now. Those forces have radical effects on our weather patterns. We're in uncharted territory, folks, but territory that we do have data on, and based on that data, we could actually be teaching and preparing people rather than keeping them in the dark. Humans have been working together to grow food since the dawn of time. It is only in this generation that we have become complacent and allowed billion-dollar corporations to feed us. Scarcely anyone knows how to grow, preserve, or cook their own food anymore. In just a single generation, we have been transformed into a weaker, more dependent, and vulnerable species. Our world is burning up, but not from global warming. From anger and hate and polarization to ideologies that encourage violence to quell the climate deniers. Divide and conquer has always been the mantra of the elite. Now, if you don't believe that what I am telling you is true, then you have never read a history book in your life. Just like the sun and the moon and the stars, and yes, even our weather, humans are just as cyclical and predictable. Now, I had a hard time picking just one quote to end the cast with, so I'm going to throw two at you. Quote, "The point of modern propaganda isn't only to misinform or push an agenda. It is to exhaust your critical thinking, to annihilate truth." Chessmaster Garry Kasparov. That's a good one. And you've probably heard this one. Quote, "One of the saddest lessons of history is this. If we've been bamboozled long enough, we tend to reject any evidence of the bamboozle. We're no longer interested in finding out the truth. The bamboozle has captured us. It's simply too painful to acknowledge, even to ourselves, that we've been taken. Once you give a charlatan power over you, you almost never get it back." Carl Sagan, The Demon-Haunted World. I would like to thank my art collective and colleagues here at Music of Wolves, my band of merry men and women. Earthship, our self-sustaining Earth campaign focused on growing independent communities. Magic, casting our spell on cannabis. Vimeo, and finally Scorpio, our musical muse. Like them, I am here to share, advise, and to help you prepare for what is coming, all the while attempting to entertain you during the process, which I hope I was successful in doing. Please like, subscribe, and share. We are a spirited community of artists and practitioners who humbly hold out our hats. Dona Dago Haya, or until we meet again.